We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Ave Maria Stella Dei Mater Alma atque semper virgo Felix te porta.
Everybody, Steve of Sense Fidelity coming at you once again with a familiar face, Aaron of Tradivox. But this time we're talking about a different one, Benedictus. So, Aaron, welcome back. Thank you for doing this. And how you been?
I'm well. Thanks for having me back, Steve.
No problem. No problem. Full disclosure, it was his call. So, hey, you want to do something on Benedictus? And full disclosure, I haven't had, and he sent me a couple copies. And my wife won't let me take them, won't let me look at him right now. So she has them. It's in her purse. I can't even show you the copies that he gave me because, like I said, she's confiscated them. She loves it. So tell us, Aaron, what is Benedictus and why is it important for people?
No, it's great. So we do, as you know, we're running the Tradivox project. This is 2019 when we first reached out to a number of different publishers for the Catechism series. We got some up here somewhere. There you go. The book series, but we needed somebody that could do a full, 20 volume set and wouldn't kind of shy away from the idea of reclaiming traditional catechisms. So Sophia Press was the most interested, which we were happy to kind of partner with them for the hardback side. So they started doing that about a year into that, partly based on the response they got to that content. They reached out to me and said, what about doing a kind of a daily, disposable pocket size resource just for focusing on, living a traditional Catholic life, just with daily devotions, the daily mass content, this kind of stuff. Do you think it would work? And a lot of people know there's been attempts at that for the last 15 years or so. 20 years. A couple of different outfits have tried something like it. Most people will compare it to Magnificat, if anybody's familiar with that. Mm-hmm. Some of your audience might be familiar with that. And it's similar in size and structure. It's a paperback. It's about 400 pages. Ours is a little bit larger as we just pack it a little fuller of content. And then, of course, the biggest difference is just the actual content. It's patterned on the traditional Mass, the traditional calendar. It follows the Roman breviary, so the classical breviary. And it's just daily. The idea is, have enough content to build a devotional life around in the same way that we would have benefited from really the faith of our forebears and some of the classical theology, this kind of content. So all of it is curated from classical authors. Of course, there's meditations every day. There's excerpts from the Hours of Lauds and Vespers from the Roman Breviary for each day. There's the Mass of the day. And especially for folks that are new to the Latin Mass, we've got the full, Latin English for all the Sundays and major holy days. And then with all the propers placed already. So maybe we could pull it up like a real close up here. So this would be a good example. So you get a day with the full Latin English as you go. Some of the rubrics, they're not technically rubrics, we'll call them that, but directions, here's what's the priest doing, he moves to the gospel side and so on. But then it also has the propers already placed for the day. So instead of somebody who maybe they walk in and they've never held a missal before and look, it's got all these ribbons coming out, which end is up, kind of a deal. You can just pull right to the calendar day. It follows the lunar calendar. So you open it to that date, and it's just a direct linear read through. All the propers are placed without having to flip and page jump and ribbon swap. Even though, of course, I love that, and many of us love that. So it's great for that.
Yeah, it's not hard for anybody that's been there before, but rookies, yeah, I can see them being a little.
That's right. You know, all the rookies out there. Yeah, no, it's great for kind of a handoff too. We've gotten this feedback a lot, that folks will do. Even parishes sometimes now, they're getting boxes just to have at the door, month to month, for somebody that comes in kind of sight unseen, because it's a great handoff for that reason. Probably why your wife still got one in her purse, and it's because you can it's a great amount of content for just jumping in a non-threatening way to, what is this whole kind of traditional mindset Catholic thing? What is this about? And it's just that content. It's just the sources, themselves. So we do a lot of special sections in there too, stuff on Catholic customs, different aspects of Catholic culture, living the faith in the home, ideas for extending kind of the liturgical life into households. Mm-hmm. Again, stuff that we pull from authors, especially in the early days of the liturgical movement. You had actually a lot of great content in that vein of folks that were really trying to do that work, not jettisoning our sacred rights and our patrimony, but rather kind of onboarding tools to help us penetrate those more deeply. I mean, so Guéranger, of course, a great favorite of many of ours. He's featured regularly. But there's just such a list. So that's what it is. It's kind of a daily drink, deeply from the sources of scripture and tradition, and trying to do that in a way it's beautiful. So we have a big focus on the typography, the layout is all, we try to emphasize the beauty of the content itself, the pricelessness of this content with a more beautiful typesetting. And then the art, of course, too. I mean, it's all old masters, whether it's the cover or there's a lot of interior engravings, even the ornaments, like something like this. So the ornaments are all borrowed from like the old Benzinger missal prints, or even the altar missals and these kind of things. So we've tried to make the bar very high from a beauty standpoint, and then also just the content to be classical, to be really engaging, and in some cases a little hard hitting, maybe a little convicting in places, but that's the intention, is to really allow the tradition, similar with the Tredabox project, allow the tradition to just kind of speak for itself.
Yeah, like the first time I got it was when you sent it to me, and I was, yeah, it's good that you had the prayers so people could learn at the beginning, not just the Mass ones, but the Our Father, Hail Mary, Glory Be, Creed, things like that. My full disclosure, I gave an idea of putting what do you call those things? Codes, so you could put your phone over the thing, and so maybe a video will play, so it'll sing to you or whatever to get the language right. That was my 2 cents on
his 2 cents. He's already digging in.
QR codes, yes.
It is. It's a good idea. We've had a lot of interest in having more, even like video tutorial type stuff, kind of in some way synced through the resource. We might go down that. We're definitely going to do. We're already working on kind of your e-reader version, but there's a lot of folks they want to get. It as audiobook, this kind of stuff. I should say it has been surprisingly, explosively well received. I mean, we had a hope for. So we have 2 issues in print. So our second issue, just came into print. We were hoping for. Our sustainability goal, like anybody knows, a print resource is difficult to sustain over the long term, and this is why none of these attempts in the past have worked. I know of at least 3 where they've tried to do something like this, a monthly kind of a periodical that gives you portions, the Mass, the Breviary, meditations from the saints, this kind of content, and none of them have made it go. Because it's hard to keep a print resource just viable. So we wanted to kind of have a really clear benchmark of the subscriber base we would need, to make it go. And So our goal was, well, by the time we have one issue in print, like after that first issue goes out, by the second issue, we want to have a kind of a threshold of 5,000 subscribers, which is a decent number for that was enough to kind of cover our bases. The word got out about this. I think it was Kwasniewski or maybe somebody on your channel, Steve. Maybe it was you. I don't know who it was originally, but it kind of leaked out like that this was in the works. And 9 weeks after that, we had crossed 5,000. So this is we're approaching 9,000 subscribers already with 2 issues in print.
Wow.
Which is awesome. Yeah. So
yeah, I like to take credit for that, but no, I didn't leak out anything.
Okay, well, I won't accuse you then. Yeah, it was fantastic. I think and the mode appropriate too. So this was just one of the funniest things in terms of divine timing. Our first issue came out. It started shipping like 2 weeks before the mode appropriate landed. And we had several people have asked like, oh, what happened, with the mode appropriate? Did it hurt the Benedictus? You lose subscribers. I said, well, we lost about 2 weeks after. I went and checked. About 2 weeks after the mode appropriate, we had lost about 20 subscribers. We had added like 600 something. And I said, I'm thinking maybe this is one of the better advertisements for the traditional mass, So
I jokingly said Pope Francis has been the best evangelist for the traditional mass that we've ever had.
It could be. We had folks even writing into us saying that, I love and am devoted to this more now. After this mode appropriate has come out, like it's helped me see the value, more deeply.
So, how many is there a lot of trad parishes that have these out there to give away or give out, or is it more just everyone got their own, bring a subscription, or is there parishes that have, hey, like the red books, I'll buy 100 and we'll give them out before mass and just collect them back?
Yes, both and we started doing a bulk subscription rate for that reason. We had several parishes wanting to do and private chapels and things wanting to do just a box of them for take home copies, not even leaving the pew, because they do. They're it's a monthly resource. So they wanted that just a regular churn of a certain amount of copies they could leave in the back. So we did a bulk rate for that. I think some are just families that are big. Big families got to get their bulk rate, So we do a bulk rate, but far and away more common to have the kind of individual subscribers, and then folks doing them as gifts also, for others. You can subscribe somebody else, kind of a thing, to send it to them. And we've actually heard frequently from folks that respond to us or send us emails or call, whatever, saying that they're using it as a kind of an evangelization tool for not just the traditional mass, but for just tradition more broadly. I mean, because every issue, we're trying to put in portions of catechesis on perhaps some contested points of doctrine might show up, here and there. And even the daily meditations, of course, how the saints and the fathers and the doctors and schoolmen, how they write about the not only the liturgy, our worship, but also the dogma that is shot through the traditional mass, that any convert will tell you. And we've heard this a lot from subscribers that are converts from Protestantism because of the traditional mass. And they say that just, ad nauseum, is just that we saw the doctrine in motion in this mass and realized, this mass is a sacrifice, that it is propitiatory, living in the dead, that just all the Catholic dogma is built into this particular rite, this form of worship. So it's a great tool for that, just as a handoff. Take it home. It's very non-threatening. It's nice to look at. Maybe you'll kind of learn something, pick something up. In fact, we've got subscribers that aren't even Catholic. We've heard from folks that are outside the church, and they just said, well, this looked like I wanted to learn more about this whole traditional Catholic thing, and so I picked one up just to see how you pray. How this looks in action, kind of a thing. So it is. It's great for that too.
What has been the I don't know, coolest story you've heard back from somebody that's subscribed, that Catholic, non-Catholic, but probably from a non-Catholic? What is some feedback you've gotten from them?
Oh, so much feedback. Golly, where to start? So when we first announced it, we were inundated with feedback just from the idea of the thing, like just that we were undertaking the project. It's leaked out, and we were just buried. People, we've been waiting for this for years. We hope it succeeds. We want to help, all that. But way more impactful, at least for me and some of the others on the team, has been, we sent a survey out just after the first. We were right at about 8,000 subscribers, and thought we should just learn more about these people as a little bit just anonymous kind of. Don't share private information, but give us some demographic info. Did you grow up with a traditional mass? Do you go to it regularly now? Do you prefer it? Do you go to it exclusively now? Have you benefited from it? What are your thoughts on the motu proprio? This kind of stuff. So we sent one out, thinking we'd get typical survey response rate is like 10%, right? So. Yeah. So we thought, we'd get that. We got almost 30% response rate, and it was over 2,000 people, and over 1,000 wrote in like their story. It was just totally we just left a blank one at the end. Anything else you'd like to share? They were all yes or no questions, and then it was anything else you'd like to share, just open forum. And I have hundreds of pages of content from people. I mean, I've just been wading through it, and it is so moving. I mean, some of them are heart-wrenching, like so sad. So I'm thinking of, there was one where a gal wrote in and said, I feel deprived. I was never told about the traditional mass. Grew up without it, and after my daughter kind of came of age, was a teenager, I think if I had known about it, she would never have left the faith for Islam, because her reasoning to me was that if this is really God, you really believe this is God that you're worshiping here at the Novus Ordo, then I don't want any part of that. This isn't even reverent towards a supreme being, and she left the faith for this, and so here's this woman writing in like, I wish I had known about the traditional mass when my daughter was still at home, So terribly sad thing. And then people that are now separated from it. We had priests write in. My bishop is given me express order that I can no longer train in the traditional mass. Priests that are trying to learn it, that weren't formed with it, but are trying to learn it now, and but asking for prayers, and encouragement, and then all the way to the other end of people that are just over the moon. People that maybe they just found out about it, the traditional mass, and they love it, or just tradition more broadly. But then those that have moved heaven and earth to access the ancient mass and the sacraments for decades. These are the folks that have done the mass rock, done the basement mass, this kind of stuff for decades, and just all of these stories and everywhere in between. I mean, there's some amazing feedback. The converts, especially, that kind of touches me personally. I'm not a convert, but I've helped a number of folks kind of come in just personally, that in our circles that our families interacted with, to come into the church, and those are always the stories that I just find the most moving for whatever reason, and there are I've got 80 pages just of stories from converts that came in, and I could read some. I've got some handy if you want to hear some of these. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be great. Throw up one of the stories if you have one near you.
I've got one. I was just pulling these up in a spreadsheet, because I was sending out some of these comments. So I had some here. Okay, so my family and I are converts from devout Protestant evangelicalism, and I doubt that my adult sons would be practicing any faith today if it weren't for the traditional Roman rite. Same with my son-in-law. I'm a Baptist. These are all different ones. I'm a Baptist convert. Came for the beauty, the glory of Holy Mother Church and the TLM. It was rarely until last month even offered in my parish in Maine. But now my soul is filled as I'd hoped it to be. That never really quite happened with the Novus Ordo before. Another one. My wife and I are converts from Protestantism. Coming into the church was the single most important thing God's done in our lives, and second was finding the TLM. I mean, just page
Just stuff
every
like that,
page.
yeah.
Well, and some that haven't converted yet. So here's one. I plan to convert to the Roman Catholic Church and want to attend the TLM regularly. I'm a convert to the church through the traditional Mass. My first encounter, I didn't understand a word the priest was saying, but I knew I was in the presence of God, and I felt that he penetrated my soul. I literally fought to come into the church. My family abandoned me, disowned me, as well as my friends in Protestantism. I've now been attending Latin Mass, and I was brought into the church on All Saints' Day. I'm a convert from Mormonism. Born and raised, I always wanted to be Catholic from when I knew Catholicism. I'm still learning from hearing, reading, and doing, but I didn't join the faith to be a Protestant. I joined to be a Catholic. So I love the traditional Mass, you know. It just goes on and on.
Yeah, somebody asked me that. I was on, I can't remember which show. It was a buddy of mine. Charles in New York. Charlie in New York. He was asking me about how I grew up, and I said, yeah, I grew up in an old parish and didn't know anything else. And I just remember people trying to hold your hand during the Our Father, and you're like, man, get off my hand. Forget it. What is this kumbaya? But or the only sermon I remember is Father talking about Mike Ditka. Yes.
Dick.
I kid you not. It's the only one. I remember when I was sitting during it because I was like, what Ditka? We're talking about the Bears now? Okay. They're not my favorite team, but I'll listen.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is the kind of feedback we keep getting from, especially from, of course, from converts.
Yeah.
Because they've lived that, you know. It's like they frequently they'll make that comment specifically of, you know, I had the happy clappy meet your neighbor, you know, man centered and what kind of worship is relevant to me. I got all that. Yeah, got that. You know, check that box.
They do it better.
Right. Yeah, and even better. And I had one fellow said to me, if I wanted a Christian rock concert and a TED talk, you know, I would have stayed evangelical or whatever. So yeah, it is. It's to the point.
So what kind of how would you say endorsements have you had?
Endorsements, a lot of the usual suspects, of course. Some fantastic priests, bishops, laymen. I think we put most of them now on the site, on the Benedictus site. Probably one of the more, I think, apropos, given our currently historical situation, has been Archbishop Vigano. His Excellency, we had kind of reached out to about the project itself, and this is back in, when was it, November or December of last year, and when it was still kind of in the works, and His Excellency's response, you know, was of course a glowing commendation, but also putting it in that context of a remedy, you know, really a remedy that the more we're able to share the worship of our forebears, it's just that whole lex orandi, lex credendi, lex vivendi thing. You know, we really do experience the shaping of this rite, its own power to kind of form us and make us like Catholics, make us think like Catholics, make us act like Catholics, or it should, right? At least it should. So he was, of course, very encouraging of the project. Of course, His Eminence, Cardinal Burke, who we continue to pray for his recovery. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head now, as I don't even have them all. The number of fraternity priests, institute priests, the response, of course, from kind of exclusive traditional Mass parishes and chapels has been very good. You know, whether it's society or institute, fraternity, you know, good shepherd, all of these. I think there's enough recognition that it's the kind of tool we've wanted for a long time. I mean, that a lot of us have wanted something that is physical. For one, it's a physical copy, not because there's apps galore, right? For find your church father for the day, or all this stuff. But something that's in physical copy, I can keep it at the bedside. I can keep it at the dinner table. My family, we use it a lot, just at or around dinner for a table reading. We do the kids, have them there, or part of the catechesis. We're able to weave some of that in since it follows the liturgical calendar. That's helpful for us. But so there's a lot of us that have wanted something like this, kind of the Swiss Army knife thing that has a lot of application outside of just the Mass. So I think there was kind of a ready receptivity, to the resource itself, even before it came out.
In sales, you always prepare for somebody to give you a negative response. So say I have a regular old missile, and I said, no, I don't. I already got one. I don't need this. What would your response back to that be?
Well, I'd say good for you, right? I mean, everybody should have an heirloom quality standalone hand missile, at least one per household, and yeah, no question. And this isn't intended to be that. It's not intended to be a replacement. The idea here is that, unlike a missile, you can pack a lot more content into a recurring monthly resource. And that's the idea, is that you've got not just, it's because it's not just a missilette. That's what I really want to avoid, is folks thinking this is a missilette. It has the content of the traditional missal for the day, the Mass of the day. But then it also has, right, the breviary content. It has a daily meditation from a saint, doctor of the church, et cetera. It has catechesis in it. It has Catholic culture, Catholic customs. It has the art, so naturally we can fit more in a recurring resource like this than a hand missile. But and there are some, we have heard from some that they prefer this to a hand missile at Mass. But those are mostly the folks that are either they're still trying to learn the ropes, like kids. This is great for kids to kind of train up to a hand missile. I use it with several of my younger children, that it's really handy for them to learn the difference of what's a proper, what's an ordinary. Oh, this goes there. It's kind of a live action, a tool for that at Mass. So there are some who will prefer that. I think the majority, of course, myself included, will always prefer a hand missile for Mass, but that's not what Benedictus is.
And unlike a missile, you can add maybe ideas, butlers, different saints that's since the missile that have been added to the calendar. You can even include, I know this is terrible for some people in the travel, Novus Ordo saints.
No, he said it.
You can add their stories in there. There's a great website I get one priest sent to me with all these 30 saints that nobody even knows about from the 20s and 10s, 1910s and things like that. But anyways, you can add more every year to the product instead of this is basically concrete, it can't be changed right now, right?
Well, and we can also avoid the unfortunate controversy that surrounds any living person today. This was something that we wanted to focus on right out of the gate, was that we didn't want any living authors. So Magnificat, for instance, is almost all that, all the longer kind of reflections and meditations. I haven't looked at one in years, but you might get a month where it's Sister Dorothy at wherever, and who knows what's going to be in there.
Short hair with varicose veins, yeah.
Well, yeah, and to the other end of the spectrum, you get some that are maybe they're just so forthright about some point that's a totally Catholic position, but somebody who's new to the ball game and reads that and says, well, who's this so and so out there? He's got some kind of politic thing going on.
Yeah.
And you can make the exact same point with the exact same content from somebody who's been dead for 5 centuries, So that's the aim, is we want to curate these authors that are venerable and proven sources from the tradition itself, So So that's at least that's how we're leading, and that's been a really regular point of feedback from folks, is that they appreciate that. They want to know that they're not going to get Joe Bob Layman in his computer, who's a theologian because he read a few things online, and, he thinks XYZ. So that's been a big help. The other thing is sharing some of the lesser known, let's say, texts from our tradition, especially from papal documents. So we had one section, there was a lot of interest in this section on, we're calling it the Apostolic Encouragement page. And it's one page, so it's very brief, but it's just a hard-hitting excerpt from a pope of centuries past. We may broaden it out to bishops, but there's just no end. I mean, there's so much manuscript tradition we have to draw on. But this section is really geared to be that. Like, how did popes speak once upon a time about the faith?
Anathema sit.
Yeah, and it's an eye opener. I mean, we let in, our first full issue, we let in with an excerpt on things like the universal apostasy, things like it was all Pius X talking about one world church, this order that would have no God, no morality. It would just be built on human fraternity and these kind of things. And so some folks are going to read this, and is this commentary, on recent news? And no, it turns out this is a century plus ago. And but this is how Catholics think. This is how Catholics pray. That's the idea with this resource, is to just do a lot of broadening of horizons, a lot of sharing just all of the wealth of our patrimony, as much as we can get in there.
Yeah, I joke saying that we should be the best plagiarists of them all because there's nothing new under the sun.
Oh, it's totally true. And in fact, there's one I'm really excited about in January. We're going to add a new section that's all medievals. It's they've never been translated before. We partnered up with is a translator in Spain currently, and I think another in Canada that had been pulling these medieval liturgical commentaries. So in the High Middle Ages, that's the pinnacle of commentary, what they just call the mystical commentaries on the rite itself. So even independent of say the lectionary text, the epistle, the gospel, every little gesture, every little sign of the cross, genuflection, kiss, turn, the direction of the hands, all of these things, as you know, are filled with mystic signification. And the High Middle Ages was like the pinnacle of commentary on those portions, on those aspects of worship. And so we've got somebody now or a couple of somebodies that are going to help us do proprietary translations from some of these medieval authors. They've never been translated in English. And this section is, I geek out about that stuff. So it is just so powerful, So you read these things, you say, well, this is 1,000 years old. So this commentary is 1,000 years old, and he's talking about a ritual gestures that I just watched Father do, up in the sanctuary. I mean, it's very powerful stuff.
All right. One more objection that may come out. You probably have had this happen. All right. Disposability. Since it's a week or a month thing and someone throws it away, I've had people when they say, well, if I give a miraculous medal to somebody and they throw it away, how bad is that? Well, this got the word of God in it. What do you say to that?
Sure. It is bad in terms of throwing away. These are, of course, the most sacred texts in our tradition, the most venerable rite in Christendom, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really unavoidable to have it in a soft copy. I'm hoping for the day when someone finally does a leather shop and does covers for these, the freestanding slipcover thing. But I think we've tried to. Well, let me rewind. It's point well taken. Okay, that's the first point. Point well taken. These are sacred texts. They ought to be treated with great reverence. we have tried to highlight that in each issue. We put it right in the back cover, please, what did we put in there? So right on the back cover before you get rid of it, right? And it says, every issue of Benedictus, it contains sacred texts. It ought to be reverently regarded as such. Please consider retaining or gifting this book or disposing of it by fire or burial, which is the typical practice for blessed items, of course. And some will say, oh, you don't need to be so scrupulous. It's not a blessed item. It's just text. I kind of balk at that. St. Francis, of course, there's the stories of Francis would find scraps of paper on the ground, and he would bend down and kiss them because he couldn't read. But what if this was a page from a missal, or what if this was some text from Holy Scripture? So I think that's the kind of default position that we ought to have with regard to the missal. So for that reason, we've tried to emphasize the beauty in the actual pages. We did gold foil and metallic ink for that, stuff you never see in a disposable, for that reason, just to try and emphasize the beauty of this content and to kind of then re-emphasize the sacrality of the content. And so yes, point well taken is what I'm trying to say. Point well taken, and we hope people will regard it with that same kind of reverence, and we try to bring that to people's attention too.
Maybe you could bring in like a Goodwill store. Maybe they talk about evangelization. Maybe they pick that up and start reading it one day, 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, well, and as a handoff, I keep coming back to that, mostly because we've heard that from subscribers. It's non-threatening, it's small, it's lovely to look at, and it's very discreetly deposited within a jacket pocket or a purse, right? And you just say, oh, here you go. Maybe you got a week left in the month, and you've already got 3 issues at home anyways, and so you say to somebody, this is if you're going to go to the mass or there's a mass next week because you have one every quarter or whatever, at the cathedral, you should take one of these along. This will help you not lose your place if you're new, or again, even folks that aren't Catholic, to just give them a little dose, of what it looks like for Catholics to pray and believe, in this way.
How to order? How does people go about ordering?
Yeah, it's all on the website. It's the praybenedictus.com. praybenedictus.com, and they have a different track for parishes, or large families, of course, too. Mm-hmm. But because we do want to make bulk rates available for people, we want to get this out, So it's all on the website.
Very good, Aaron. Anything else you can think of that you want to get out there for people?
I think you covered it. You grilled me really well too, which I appreciate on the objections. Well, let me think of another objection though while we're at it. So. The question of what to include, because this is a perennial objection and it will never be answered. So now I'm giving you the silver bullet, the unanswerable objection, right?
Okay.
Because we wish we could have more in there. We hear this constantly. Put in some more votives. We've got a whole section on votive mass. Like you need. I went to. I want the votive for defense of the church, against heresy in there. It's like, okay, well, we just can't fit it all. This is our biggest challenge, is that 400 pages per issue is a pretty serious amount. But that's kind of a red line for us. And if we're duplicating full Latin English, every Sunday for folks to kind of have these regular benchmarks, which is a focus of ours, we're just maxing out our page count. So I will give you that objection and say to anyone, we want to hear from you. Of course, we want to hear what you want in there. We've tried to cover a lot. We do cover a lot, but there's always more. There's so much out there. There's so much more. So yes, we could always use more and different content in the issues themselves.
Maybe a special edition, the votive mass edition.
We're already talking about one as like a freestanding one that just has more fixed content, like rites for benediction, adoration, rites for confession, good examen, this kind of stuff that could be kind of perennially revisited issue. So yes, we're taking all this in because we want I mean, we want this to be a tool that we all can use. That's the whole idea. Not just for somebody who's a kind of a veteran lover of the tradition, the Mass, etc. Something they can benefit from, day to day, that their families, their kids can benefit from, all the way to somebody who's totally sight unseen. They walk in the door, what is going on? So we want to have that kind of availability in each issue. So it's a work in progress. We want to hear from everybody.
I was just thinking of a section. What is going on?
What is going on? Yes. In fact, we have one. It's called the Did You Know section. And in every issue, we do, nice big pictures. What are those things up there? What is that big piece behind the altar called? That's a reredos. So what is that priest wearing? Oh, well, this is a maniple. It does this. These are the prayers for vesting. So we're trying to do that in every issue as well. But yes, you bring all the feedback, all the interested
charitably.
Folks that want to see. Charitably, well, even uncharitably. So what are you gonna? It doesn't bother me. We would love any and all feedback. This is part of, I think, the work is building a bit of a platform for one, for other Catholic publishers. So one thing that we want to do is feature the smaller Catholic publishers that are doing reprints of awesome traditional works. Like nobody in their right mind would have gone and tried to republish Father Himon's 5-volume commentary. Okay, you're not going to find that in a major printer. Yeah. But some of these smaller Catholic printers are like, I can't believe that this is out of print. Nobody's ever done it, and they'll do it. We want to connect with those people. We want to say, here's an excerpt for the day from that work, and it's a beautiful work, and we want to send people over there and say, look, they have this reprint. On the other end, we want it to be a platform for folks who, of course, being exposed to content they never would have heard otherwise. And then on the other end, having really allowing them a place to share, like we did with the survey, even their experience, and just giving these people a voice. I can't tell you how many pages I've got of folks responding that way about the motu proprio, just saying, well, I was never consulted, but are we chopped liver? I'm out here at this parish that has grown. As some of them said, our parish grew 10 times the Mass attendance in the last half year. 10-fold increase in attendance at this Mass in the last year. And they're saying, is this disunifying? Is this really at the service of souls to restrict this kind of growth where folks are having conversion? They're coming to know our Lord in a deeper way. They want to worship Him, with all that they are and have. Their families. I mean, many of our subscribers talking about how their kids just didn't get it before, and now they get it. It's like they came to this Mass, and that was it. That was all they needed. It's like, oh yeah, this is what this is all about.
That was about my first time doing it. It was in a gym. Just imagine a yellow painted gym, 4 walls, and there was a stage. And Father, now at the seminary, the server is now a priest, and my brother, he's now a priest. He invited me to it, and I'm going. There's 4 people in this gigantic, gym. This is ugly as sin inside here, but that's amazing. Whatever's going on up there is amazing. It just made sense. I'm thinking, wow, what if this was in a really beautiful looking place? What would it look like?
What would it look like that? No, it's true. There are many people that testify that way. Mine was the total opposite end of the spectrum. I had the good fortune of stumbling into Pontifical High Mass at La Barue in France. This is one of the great keepers of the liturgical tradition. This was 2008, and it was 3 hours long. It was. And I just walked out of there blinking, like, what just happened to me? I mean, and it felt like no time had passed. It felt like moments, and it had been like three something hours. But there are so many who that's their experience, and there are those who we've got feedback from some that say things like, I went a few times and hated it, like just what is going on up there. It's so off-putting. It's so different, right? It's so different from anything I'm used to. And then it was just almost without exception, maybe without exception, those kind of stories when those folks made a decision to commit to it, just independent of their, like, usually the reasoning is something like, this is the only semi-reverent thing I can find in the, you know, in a 3-hour radius or whatever. It's usually after a commitment of the will, even without love, without affection, let's say, without affection for the rite itself, almost immediately following a commitment of the will, there's this aha thing that happens. And I've yet to find somebody who can explain that, you know, from a kind of an affective point of view. But Aquinas explains it really well. So I mean, when you elect to place right worship as the principal moral act, which it is. So this is the principal moral act, the principal act of the human person, which is offering to God right worship. And let's just pretend that the traditional Mass, which has been that for so many centuries, is that. We'll just say a classical rite, a classically developed, organically grown, Holy Spirit inspired rite of worship over the piety of centuries. If that is in fact such an act, then of course, if you opt to, if you elect to offer that in with the will, it's going to make all of these other things make sense. You know, your affectivity will be rightly ordered, your passions will be rightly ordered. You'll be able to think more clearly. We hear this from a lot of folks. I don't know if you even notice this or know people who've said that, but I hear that a lot.
I don't know.
Well, you're already thinking perfectly clearly, so from the get-go, so that's fine. But
nothing goes on inside these between the ears. I had a priest had a great one of, you know, back in the 40s, 30s, before then, beer was tasting great. He was making a comparison with beer. You had all these different beer, the taste buds were up there. And then all of a sudden in the 60s, 70s, they had the big guys came like a monopoly, and you got this bland taste. Everything was the same. Miller Lite, Bud Light, Budweiser. It all tasted the exact same, kind of bland. And all these little microbreweries started coming up, and it had, your taste buds weren't used to it anymore. So you had to give some people time to get their taste buds back to tasting what good beer tasted like. And it starts sprouting more and more as the days go by and the years go by until it's all over the place. Now there's microbrews here and there, and all these big cities and small cities have this, and some people reject it because they don't like the way it tastes. But the good stuff is out there, and everyone's having to really reset their whole body for the taste of some what good tastes like again. And we're sitting there going, "You're talking about the Mass, aren't you?"
You forgave him the profane analogy, of course.
Well, we were at our brewery at the time too.
Oh well, that matters. That's good then. Oh, it is. It's I mean, of course, every analogy limps, but I think that is a big part of it. Because folks realize in pretty short order that the Mass is not just a thing that you do, you know, on Sunday or on any day. It really does radically reorient your person. I mean, it should, you know, it should reorient your priorities, your your thought processes, what you value, you know, what you're committed to, what you're serious about. It does have that effect, and I think folks realize that, and I have heard from people that was the reason that they waited so long, was that they kind of got an initial taste, and then it was like the thought process went on, and they realized, wait, if I kind of dig into this, and it's like any convert story, if I really dig into this, it's going to mean I need to change some things.
It's funny how that works that way.
It is, and it's dogma in motion. That's why we love it.
All right, so I know we're doing this in August, and I don't want to time the video to be something like in December or January next year. You can't watch it, so you got October coming up in Lepanto. There's something special in that edition coming out, correct?
Oh, yes. Well, it's of course the 450th anniversary of the Battle of Lepanto. So we are highlighting that in that issue. So far, it's my favorite. So we disclaimer: we work. I mean, it's not a disclaimer. It's just normal. This is normal periodical work. You have to work like 6 months in advance, you know, of your issues in terms of the content. because there's so much involved. I mean, we've got, because now we have, I mean, there are folks international, several different countries, so we're doing international periodical postage, all this stuff, and so we have to work several months out from issue to issue, and the October one so far is personally my favorite, because every issue we get to we're necessitated to focus on some feasts more than others. We just, we can dig deep on some, we can highlight some, and so of course October you've got the kingship of Christ. And then a nice kind of pairing with our Lord's kingship, heaven and earth, is the actual historical event of the Battle of Lepanto, and then, of course, with Our Lady. And yes, the readers can be excited about that issue along with me, because we do a lot on the traditional Catholic social doctrine. So we hit a lot of those points in relationship to Christ the King, of course. What does it mean to have Christ's kingship? This is not just an interior spiritual reality. Right? What does this mean in terms of nation states, in terms of political activity, moral activity in the public sphere, et cetera, et cetera? So fielding some of those texts from Leo XIII, Pius IX, Pius X, et cetera, as well as the kind of the quas primas highlights, the goodies from that, which again, a lot of this is totally news to people. So a lot of that content, kind of the Catholic social doctrine, but then also the connecting point being the historical episode of Lepanto. What does it mean to, in fact, take up arms in defense of Christ's kingship, the sacred sites, etc. And so we highlight that a little bit. I wish I could get over there, because they do the naval reenactments. Have you ever gone to one of those?
I had no idea they did that. No.
Oh yeah,
I have the furthest east side's been is Charleston. I haven't been across the pond.
Well, yeah, and who knows if any of us will ever be able to get across. Yeah,
I'm pretty set on that. Yeah, I'm never going to be able to fly again.
Yeah, I'm with you. Who knows about that? But yeah, they do the big naval reenactments.
Wow.
And this one's going to be, I mean, of course, barring the unforeseen variants of who knows what, they at least were planning years ago. Who started planning for a real humdinger of a show out there for the 450th anniversary.
Do they film that at all, or?
Yes, some of them they've filmed. You can go watch them in Spanish or Portuguese. They're kind of out and about if you go looking. But they shoot fireworks at each other and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. They have the narration on big screens. They'll project out like laser light show type stuff. And but folks, you just cannot get your mind around what that would have been like. The greatest naval engagement between the crown and the crescent, the cross and the crescent in history to a force that had never been defeated by sea. I mean, this amazing episode in our history. So we try to kind of dig into that a little bit in the October issue of Lepanto. So I know you'll be a fan, knowing your good your love of Our Lady and
there's a Lepanto flag, and up here, that's Our Lady Bombadina.
Oh yes,
she's dropping bombs on the Turks.
Oh, they're rosary beads.
Yes,
you know that.
I'm trying to find a better high definition photo of that one, but I'm looking forward to that one definitely.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Aaron, appreciate your time, man. So go to PrayBenedictus.com. Check out Tradivox too while you're out there. Well, I got them on. I got to throw them a bone.
We appreciate that too. Yeah, the catechisms are still going strong. That stuff. We could do a whole show on the catechetical continuity of the last millennium, and it's rather interesting development in the last 5 decades or so.
We can do that in a couple weeks if you like.
Oh, sure. That'd be fun.
Aaron, take care, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.